A warm welcome to everyone. So with me, I have Dr. Susanne Schmidt. She is PAFnow's product manager. And I also have Timo Nolle, who is PAF's CTO and member of the executive board. So thanks for joining me for today's meeting. Let me quickly talk about logistics for a second. We can give you the opportunity to share questions during the presentation through the chat. So feel free to use this opportunity. And of course, at the end of the meeting, as you can see from the agenda, we are here to answer your questions. But we're gonna like to kick off the meeting in talking about what's new, a summary of the highlights, and also a live demo to really make you see how much PAFnow have developed over the last couple of weeks and months. And then, as announced in the webinar announcement, we also will talk about operational excellence and demonstrate the power of the native integration of PAFnow in Power Platform and Office 365. And yeah, finally, we're also gonna talk and explain how you're gonna get access to your latest PAFnow version in order to get started immediately with PAFnow after this webinar. Before we go into the highlights of the PAFnow new version, let me share that we are very proud that PAF is continuously democratizing, globalizing process mining. We still believe it's very necessary to make process mining available for everyone and to make it very easy and comfortable for everyone to start their process mining journey. At PAF, we also believe that the future of process mining is all about to learn from the existing process data, to drive next best actions, and to improve business processes. And this webinar today will be about to demonstrate how easy it is to learn from your process data, how powerful it is to drive next best actions, and also to prevent negative outcomes. For all of you who haven't seen PAFnow live and in action, let me quickly explain why we have implemented PAFnow as we did. The reason and the rationale behind implementing PAFnow in Power BI was that we wanted to make process mining more accessible for everyone to experience the benefits. And unlike all the competitors, PAF put process mining really where it belongs, which is in Power BI. By embedding PAFnow to your existing Power BI infrastructure, the Power Platform, and Office 365, you have untapped possibilities to improve operational business processes with your existing resource. As you can see from the slide to the left-hand side, this was, by the way, also something which was recommended by the inventors of the process mining concept in the process mining manifesto already in 2011. But let's move forward and let me ask Timo and hand over to Timo and ask him, why is the democratization and globalization of process mining so important to you? And would be nice if you can tell us and demonstrate how this idea is already part of the PAFnow product philosophy and DNA. Timo.
Thank you, Tobias. So you nicely talked about democratization and what democratization means. We want to bring process mining to everyone out there so they can benefit from it. And let me share with you today a little bit of what our philosophy is and what design principles we follow and we strongly believe in when designing PAFnow and also when in the future still keeping on working on it. So first of all, if you want to really be, you really want to be unintrusive. Because if you want to democratize process mining, it has to work under all circumstances. And people have set up their infrastructures, they have set up their own platforms, they have set up their best practices in terms of tools that they're using, and you want to integrate into those platforms and infrastructures. So if your software wants to succeed, it has to be unintrusive. That's what we believe. And it has to feel natural and native as possible. So we do not want to change the platform, we don't want to change the platform only as much as we have to allow for process mining to work in those circumstances. So another point that you have to keep in mind is if you want to democratize and reach as many people as possible and as many users as possible, your software has to be flexible. Again, flexible not to the platform and infrastructure, but flexible to the use cases that customers have in mind. But there's an issue here, of course, because if you do not balance out flexibility with intuitivity, flexibility can become very complex. And we know that, and this is why we always strive for a very intuitive user experience and user interface, which is the third point on the slide. And last but not least, if you really want to be sustainable for the future or fit for the future, you have to make sure that the software and the pipelines and the data that you're using and that your infrastructure remains secure. Security is very important to us, as it is to all of you guys. So your data remains your data, your platform remains your platform, and your infrastructure remains your infrastructure. It's really also very important, and is also tightly coupled to the unintrusiveness. Yeah, by basing our software solution on really standards that are in the market for many, many years and have been proven to be secure and to be successful, we inherit this security and bring this to you. So you're in complete control over where your data flows and what you do with your data. So these are the 4 main principles that we work by when trying to come up with new features for process mining and bring it to really everyone out there and really democratize process mining. So keeping that in mind, I want to touch upon one more point, why we chose Power BI in the first place. So we go to the next slide, Tobias. Thank you. Because what this allows us to do is really to focus on the things that matter to us, which is how can we make sure that process mining in the right place can be as unintrusive and as flexible and intuitive as it can be for the people who are already working with their infrastructure. And we have a quote here from Microsoft's recent launch of their Power Automate desktop, where they, among others, mentioned us that they are working with us for the process intelligence part that they need for RPA. So Microsoft is really making a big move towards RPA nowadays. And we are part of it. And this again shows that the best of breed approach that we are following is really the way to go, because we can all benefit from the updates and from the innovations from all sides included in this. So we go to the next slide, Tobias. Just to give you a couple of highlights of what we have been doing for the custom visuals that are part of PAFnow. I want to mention a few things here. So first of all, these 3 visuals that we have mainly been working on to us are the elementary visuals that you need for process mining, basically in any tool. This is of course talking about PAFnow and Power BI in this case, but these are the elementary ones that you need. You need the process visualization. You need the case visualization, where it's not the process that you see, but you see every individual case. And then you need to be able to interact with it. And we think these 3 are so elementary and these should be so easy to use that we basically gave all of them a complete overhaul in terms of UX and UI and how intuitive they can feel. So first of all, the Process Explorer. We follow a sound discovery approach, which is to say it's nothing about sound. It's the soundness here is to say that we will never show you partial behavior in your process, so you always know exactly what you're seeing. So it's always intuitive. Whenever you use the slider to drill down into your processes, you can always be sure that what you see is actually what happened. It's not some partial behavior that is left over by not being filtered away. So that's the point number 1. We have been working on our take on conformance checking, because what you find in the market is that even though process models are everywhere to be found, it's very, very, very hard to really match those to the data points that you have in your in your information systems. And we make it really easy to start conformance checking just by a few clicks. Again, it should be intuitive. All you have to do is select the variant, say this is conform, and you can create your process model, your reference model, so to speak, directly from the data. And you don't have to first match your process model to the data that you have. You can do that later on, but this is very, very fast and intuitive. There's a couple of other points, the deviation highlight, which makes it easy to see differences in processes when you compare them. We have native readable filters. So the nativeness here is important, because in Power BI filters are always readable and you can understand them. This is also, we are going with the standards that the platform provides and try and be unintrusive as possible. And the dynamic tooltips is just another highlight that we added. Now let's talk about the case view and the event filter for a second, because we completely rewrote all of them from scratch to make sure that we can provide incredible performance for both of the visuals. And by example of the event filter, for example, we completely redesigned the way it works. Now it's way more intuitive. You have a drag and drop UI where you can create infinite relations. You basically can, Susanne is going to show this later in the demo. It's really going to be cool, but you can create as many relations as you want just by drag and dropping together your process model for which you want to search for, which allows then partial process matching. So I can define a part of my process that I'm interested in, or a part pattern, and we're going to search for all of the variants that match this pattern. And this is also supporting parallelism. So you can say I'm interested in process variants that have these two activities in it, but I don't care about the order because they're always parallel. This is also supported. So lastly, going to the middle, the case viewer, as I said, now is way more performant than it was before. Almost 50 times faster and when you scroll through your cases. And it has complete redesign. So now it's in line with how the Process Explorer looks, and has inherited many of the features that the Process Explorer had in terms of flexible attribute selection, which is to say you can now use many more attributes coming from your event log that you want to visualize. And you can make use of swim lanes that are very natural to BPMN, so to people coming from BPMN or from BPM. Which makes it really easy to see, for example, if you use something like a department for your swim lane visualization, when your process is going back and forth, when in fact it should really always go down. Something like that, which is called the ping pong effect. And lastly, we added the absolute and relative time to the case viewer. So now it's not just a sequence of activities that happened, but you can really see how much time has been spent in between two activities. All right, Tobias, let's go to the next slide. I want to quickly touch upon one other thing, because our approach is based on custom visuals, yes, but it's also based on a very clever data structure that you can use to save your event logs. And again, being unintrusive and trying to follow this principle, we let you choose your database. And I'm happy to now say that we support pretty much all of the databases that you could come up with. You can see those on the bottom, and we've been working very hard to make this thing as fast as possible, averaging a speed up of almost 5 times. And the more events you have in your event log, the better the speed up becomes. So now let's get into the interesting part. This was some of the highlights on very technical stuff, which we're going to see as part of the demo that Susanne is about to show. But let me give you a little bit of a history of what happened in the last 6 months. We're starting with the pandemic. So what we have seen starting in the beginning of this year is an increase in demand for audit projects. And we have been very, very busy doing many, many audit projects. And what we found is that the problems that auditors face in those projects are very, very common across the different projects. Although the projects are completely different and the processes are completely different that are being analyzed, the problems are kind of similar. So what we did is we implemented best practices throughout those projects, and then we found that we can consolidate all of those best practices into a single report, and then, which we now call the PAFnow Audit Edition. So this is really made for auditors with them in mind and with their hardships that they go through when conducting these not the experiments, but when conducting their projects. And the end result is that you can now experience a very flexible and intuitive workspace or workplace for auditors in any process. So this is important. If the process is specific, it's easy to come up with your solution. When it is not, it's really hard. And this is, I think, what we did. And this is now what Susanne is going to show with an example use case. And she's going to walk us through all of the new features that we have talked about, and also what the PAFnow Premium Audit Edition is. Susanne, to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Timo, and also Tobias for the nice introduction. I am now sharing my screen, and you will probably see the report. Can I have some feedback from you, Tobias? Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you again for the nice introduction. I'm Susanne. I'm PAFnow's product manager, and I'm super happy to present you the PAFnow summer update now in context of the PAFnow Internal Audit Edition. So the new features and highlights will be embedded in the audit story. I will just start explaining now. So when you see my screen, you probably know how our product looks like, and that we always start our process mining journey on the discovery page. So what you see on the discovery page here is very prominently our PAFnow Process Explorer, plus on the right side some super relevant KPIs and also some filter options. So let me just quickly walk you through what we see here. So on top, we see the PAFnow duration card, which shows us the average lead time for the selected process. And since we don't have any selection yet, it shows us the average lead time for the complete data set, which is here 29 days, 22 hours, 50 minutes, and 3 seconds. And this is for 968 cases of 79 variants. Below, you see our variant filter, where you can select either single variants, or you can also select like multiple variants. So this is also super intuitive and easy to use. And below that, you see a tree map. And here this tree map shows us the euro volume. So the bigger the box, the higher the euro volume of the purchase orders. So I will come to that, what process we have here. And for several plants. And we see that the biggest box is for plant 1000. And when I hover over this, I see in the tooltip that for plant 1000, I have a total euro volume of 11.9 million, and for 264 cases. And then also something what we just added this year to our PAFnow product is this little drill through map plus the reset filters button. I will show you what we can really sophisticatedly do with that drill through. So now let me start to explain what we actually see in the process and what process we are analyzing in the internal audit edition today. So we analyze a typical purchase to pay process, which usually starts with the creation of a purchase order, what you see here with the activity name create PO, which is followed by several approval steps. Then when the purchase order is approved and the goods are delivered, then the goods issue is, or the goods receipt, sorry, is posted. So this is indicated by post GR. And afterwards, also the invoice is posted, and then finally the invoice is paid. So this is typically from purchase to pay process. So now let me come to what we added to our product just recently. So I don't know if you already knew our slider, probably you do. So when you use our slider and you increase, or you move it to the right, you increase the complexity. So you probably all know when you do process mining, this typical spaghetti picture. But what we are really proud of is that we are not able now to increase the complexity by moving the slider to the right, but you see that we have like the same button also on the left side, so that we can decrease the complexity again, but by reducing the most frequent variants and path. So when I do this, and for example, I move that completely to the right now, then I see the less frequent path of my process here in that picture. So, and the other way around, when I completely move that to the left, then I see the most frequent path of my process here. So I really like that, and it makes it really easy to discover the process. And what you also could do is not only moving the buttons from the left and the right side, but you also have like a window what you can just shift around. So you can drag and drop that and really slide through your process. So that I really love that. Okay, that's one thing what we added. Another thing what we added, what also Timo mentioned already, is the deviation highlight. But before I will explain the deviation highlight, let me first explain the highlight feature as such. So you can easily spot by the default highlight values we have set here that, for instance, from approved PO level 1 to post goods received, or from post goods received to post invoice and to pay invoice, then also this took relatively seen longer than the other edges. And also in comparison from approved PO level 2 to approved PO level 3, this took only 15 seconds. So the fast running edge is highlighted in green and the long running edges are highlighted in red. So please remember now that these are highlighted in red and in green, and also maybe important to mention here is that on the edge labels, you see the average lead time. So for instance, from approved PO level 1 to post goods received, it took 11 days and 5 hours on average. So as I said, remember that, because when I now click, for example, on plant 1000, what happens is that the colors change. I think this is nothing new actually, but what is new is now that also the meaning of the colors are changing. So you remember that before we had like the fast running edge between approved PO level 2 and 3, and from post goods received to post invoice, and also pay invoice, and also this edge from approved level 1 to post goods received. This was taking on average relatively long. But what is now highlighted in red is really prominently here, this from create purchase order to approve purchase order level 1, with a little arrow pointing on top. So what does that mean? This means that the deviation is now positive in comparison to my complete data set. So when I now also hover over this and the little tooltip appears, I get a little bit more information. So what we see is that from create PO to approve PO level 1, the average duration was 9 hours, 59 minutes. And for the selection of planned 1000, it is now 1 day and 1 hour. So this increased by 15 hours and 26 minutes. In the next line, we see that the number of cases actually have decreased. So from 1,816 cases to 216 cases now in the selection of planned 1000, only 600 cases run over this edge. The minimum of duration has increased from 0 seconds of 9 seconds. I think we can probably ignore that, but what is remarkable is that the maximum of duration with 70 days and 3 hours remained the same here, which means that probably some outlier cases fall into that selection of planned 1000. So what I would like to do now is to analyze further if this assumption is true, that we really have outlier cases, and maybe also find some explanations for that. So one further assumption I would have here is that perhaps because we selected that plant with the highest invoice volume euro, that probably, or perhaps we have different processes for different invoice volume groups, like that you have to have different approvals for higher invoice volumes or something like this. So this is just an assumption. And I would now really like to show you how we can easily use the tool through functionality here, because I know for a fact that on another page, which is called difference analysis, so this is the next one here, we have predefined that we can analyze the process according to different invoice volume groups. So I just make a right click and drill to my difference analysis page here. And what then happens is that the selections and the filters I had on my discovery page are just taken with me now also on this page. So you see in my selection is now exactly the 264 cases from planned 1000. And the page looks similar to also the discovery page, but there are a few differences. But again, we have here the average lead time now for the selection of planned 1000 with the number of cases and variants, the variant filter. And here we have the PAFnow attribute filter, where you can use it to really filter. And what you easily can see is that the layout of our Process Explorer looks a little bit different than it looked on the discovery page. And what we have here is the legend feature. So we use this attribute, what groups invoice volumes together. So cases that have an invoice volume between 0 euros and 1,000 euros fall into that group A. Then the next group, which is 1,001 euros to 10,000 euros, is group B. And then we have group C with 10,000 to 50,000 euro. And then we have group D with 50,000 to 500,000 euro. And plus we have this what we call all-in-one feature, where you can really see the process in one picture, but how it performed differently for the different groups. So now, since the most frequent variants are only related to the group C and D, this is what you see with the selection of the slider here. And what you also easily can see is that probably the process for the purple group went less complex than it went for the yellow group. So you see more errors for the yellow group. And what I find remarkable here is that we can see that only for this group where the invoice volume was higher than 50,000 euro, actually the approvals for level 2 and 3 are skipped. We don't have this variant for the purple. So I think this is probably a first compliance issue we can find here. And by just clicking right-clicking on this edge, I can say include me that edge, and then I can really validate if my assumption is true, because now I have filtered all variants that have skipped approved levels 2 and 3. So, and what I can see is that, of course, for A and B, I think probably that would be fine that we skip approvals because the invoice volume is below 10,000 euro. But maybe it's not okay that we skip that for invoices which are, goods we have ordered that are above 50,000 euro. So this is one compliance issue. But actually, the reason why I drilled on that page was a different one. So I wanted to identify whether or not I can find differences in the edge from create PO to approve PO level 1 regarding the average lead time. So when I now zoom into that, we see that only again for this group C, we have an average of 2 days and 5 hours. And for the other group, it's only 3 minutes and 19 seconds. So this is really a significant difference. And when I now check the tooltip again, I see again from create PO to approve PO level 1, 102 cases. Average duration is 2 days, 5 hours. Plus what we added here is the median of duration, which is only 9 seconds and which is then also equal to the minimum of duration. And this is a first indicator of really having outliers, because the maximum of duration was 70 days and 3 hours is probably in the distribution, the very right last point there. But still, we don't know yet in 100%. So what I will do now is to include again this group C by just using the filter here, and again making a drill through on the next page, which is the lead times, because I want to analyze further the lead times. So what I have now is that I still use the filter for my discovery page, which was planned 1000, and now I also use the filter of this group C for invoice volume euro. And I can also easily check that when I don't remember what I did. So we see the filters which are active by just hovering over this little icon here. And since I made a drill through twice, we have drill through doubled here in this information. Plus I see group invoice volume is group C, and I included planned 1000. So this is the filters that are active on this page. But let me first explain you again the structure of this page. So again, we have the Process Explorer, which looks similar to how the Process Explorer looked like on Discovery page. Then on the right side, again, we have the duration card, the number of cases and variants. Now we have 107 cases with 9 variants. And in the lead time table, we can easily see how the variants differ regarding the duration days. And when I just jump in the hierarchy, I can then also see the cases, how they differ in the duration days. So I can see that, for instance, case 494 took, in comparison to the rest, super long. Then in the middle of the page, we have our PAFnow lead time calculator, where I can also see that create purchase order to approve purchase order level 1 took on average 3 days, 5 hours. Which means that, I mean, we have here 2 days, 5 hours, but we also have one variant where we first create the purchase order, then go to post goods receipt, and then have to approve PO level 1. So this is also included in this calculation here. But still, this is all on case level. And what I actually want to find out is the cases here. So what we can do is also to filter really the source activity create PO, the target activity with the filters we have here, approve PO level 1, and then see what's going on and which cases this are. So let me do exactly what I just meant. I filter create PO as source and approved PO level 1 as target. And then I can use this nice slider by saying, okay, now just filter the cases with a high duration between these two activities. And now I have exactly my result. So I see that I have two cases, which is 496 and 497, which caused my 70-day outlier here. So when I now hover over the edge again, I see that on average, it's exactly 70 days, 3 hours, and minimum and maximum of duration. So this was exactly now what I wanted to find. Now we have found that we have two cases that could be problematic and that maybe should be analyzed further. So what I would like to do now is, I mean, we found these two cases. I can use the case ID to directly jump into SAP and to check what's going on. But actually, it's quite nice now to analyze further in the internal audit edition. So what I would do again, a drill through, and to then go to the segregation of duty page, because I'm now interested if regarding any compliance questions, maybe the same resource executed, create PO, approve PO level 1, or also maybe post goods receipt or something, and to identify further if these two cases are not only an issue regarding the lead time, but also regarding the compliance. So let me just drill through exactly that page. So what we now see is the new case viewer, what was also introduced by Timo, and we can easily see the nice swim lanes what he also introduced. So, but again, first let me explain quickly the structure of this page. So very prominently here is the case viewer, and on the right side again our well-known KPIs like the average lead time, number of cases, and number of variants. And you remember that we really drilled through from discovery from 968 8 cases now to 2 cases. And we have defined as cases to be non-conforming if the same resource executed approved PO level 1 and post goods received. And we see that this is true for both cases we have identified before, because this is super red, so it indicates that it's non-conforming. And also in this little table, we see that we have 2 cases selected and 2 are non-conforming. So let me now come to the swim lanes in the case viewer. So when we use the swim lanes here, we can easily see that this resource executed exactly these activities in that one case. And then only like post invoice, pay invoice was executed by different people. And the same happened for the next case. The only difference is that this case started with create purchase requisition, and this case started with create purchase order. And this is also the reason why we have 2 variants. So you see how easy it is to really identify problematic cases and also to identify that I probably have compliance issues here. So as an auditor, I think I would now know what to do with these specific cases, but I mean, the story goes on, right? So I can also now like remove the filters I have actively here, which was like on discovery plant 1000 and so on, what I just selected, and then also start analyzing all of my non-conforming cases. So when I remove the filter here, and now I have reset everything. So this is now how the default segregation of duty page would look like. And you see also that the visualization of the case viewer changed a little bit. And you see that I have here now also in the tree map the choice of selecting only conforming cases, for example, or also only non-conforming cases. And when I, for example, only select non-conforming cases, what is also quite new here is that we can use hierarchies and then also aggregations of cases. So for example, here we have different plans. This is indicated by the numbers we see here. So we have plant 0 to 50 and so on. And these are the case IDs. And I can open that, and then I can see really how each single case within the different plans was running through the process. And when I now, I selected only non-conforming cases, I can really identify where and why these cases were non-conform. So in this one plant, it was only this one case where the same resource made the approved level 1 and also posted the goods received. And in the next plant, it's already many more cases. So now I have really nicely found out that how many cases in total, it's 417, and also which plants are affected by non-conforming cases. So what I can also see is that, for example, here in this one plant, it started with create PO. We have the approvals, post goods received, post invoice, pay invoice. Looks like a standard P2P process, I would say. But when we check, for example, this one case in the next plant, then we see that here we have a self loop for approved PO level 1, then the invoice was posted, and then the goods received were posted, and then the invoice was paid, and so on. So now I deselected. Sorry, let me make the selection again. So, and then I have twice the posted a negative goods received. So the point is, I see that probably the sequences here are also not compliant. So on case level, regarding to that rule, we found out that in this one plant, probably something went wrong. But I see also that regarding the sequences of the activities, something went wrong. And now I would come to that point what Timo also mentioned in the beginning, to conformance checking and what we call sequence compliance, and to find out if we have both compliance issues here. Regarding the sequence and the case level, but before we can do that, we first have to define our reference model, and I would like to show you on the next page how easy that is. And then come back later to segregation of duty analysis. So what we see here is the sequence compliance page, in the middle with our process explorer, on the left side with our new event filter, and again, the average lead time, number of cases, variance, variant filter, drill through and reset filters here. And before I will explain the event filter in detail, because I really love that. That's super sophisticated to do conformance checking. I will also show you how easy it is to conformance checking only using the process explorer, because this is actually also really great. So first of all, by default, the conformance check is activated here. I show you how easy that is. You only have to click on that little button, and then conformance check is activated. So, and by default, of course, no reference model is defined, but I can easily define a reference model by just, for instance, saying, okay, this looks like a conform variant, thumbs up. So that's it. And then I can start doing my conformance check and analyze where my deviations are. And when I, for instance, like, okay, create purchase requisition, this is also something conforming, or create shopping cart. I like that as well. Then just right click, mark as conform. And then I have the variance, including that as well. Or the other way around, when I say post negative goods received is not conform, then I can also mark that as not conforming. And all variants that include that specific activity are then marked as not conform. So just let me briefly explain now what we see here. So all green activities mean that these activities happen only in conform variants. And if we have gray activities, this means that this happened in conform and also in non-conform variants. So for example, when we check this path here, it starts with create PR, then it is followed by create PO. This is probably conform. Also that the approval happens afterwards, this is also conform, but that the purchase order is created after approval, this is not conform. This is indicated by this red edge here. So this is why these two activities are now in gray. If I would say, yeah, this is also fine for me, then it would probably change to be green, but we see also another edge what is not super clear, that this is conform, or we have this variant defined of post negative goods received being not conform. So this is super easy now to define the reference model, and we can also always check the reference model. So I can, by just clicking on that icon, and then I can also here further define my reference model by, again, doing right clicks, for instance, on these little self loops here. And then I have a nice reference model here as well. So this was one way of doing it. And now I would like to come to the new event filter. Before I do that, I will just remove what I have defined as to be conform here and start explaining the event filter. So the event filter, as Timo said, it's like super easy to use now with a drag and drop experience. So you see like a graph here on the left side and all activity names that you have in your data set. And as it says, drop here, I would just start by drag and dropping an activity name here. And while I do that, you see that this yellow icon changes to be green. And when it is green, this indicates that the selection, or the model I've formed here is something what we can find in the data. So for this simple example, this only means that I want to filter all processes that include create purchase order. And you see already that we have 964 cases and 78 variants that include a purchase order. So I would be now interested, okay, why do I have cases or variants without a purchase order? So I can just right click here and say exclude and give me the inverse selection actually. So now I see, okay, I have one variant with 4 cases that don't have a purchase order, and this has probably something to do how the data was extracted. So for me, that's probably fine. Or I can also say, okay, this is not fine. It's not conform. Okay. So then just let me again include that and further start to define my to be model. So I said, okay, give me all variants that include create purchase order. But more interestingly, I would say, please give me all variants that started with the create purchase order. And you have seen, I just clicked on that arrow with the left click, and it changes from being dashed to be solid. And this means, so the dashed arrow is meaning it's eventually followed, and the solid arrow means it's directly followed. So, and for this being the first activity, this means, it's directly followed as start activity. And when I now fire that up, you see again that the number of cases have reduced. And when I make this picture here bigger, you see that really the starting point is create purchase order. Okay, so then this is the first step. What I would also like to do is to say, okay, let me make this one bigger because now the process becomes a little bit more complex. I would say, okay, it's not only okay to start with purchase orders, but also with purchase requisitions, or also with shopping carts. So I can define such a parallel process by just drag and dropping that in one line and saying, okay, I want that my variance or my process has to start with one of these, but I don't care which one actually. But when it starts with shopping cart or purchase requisition, I also want that afterwards the purchase order is directly created and not sometime later. So I would just add that here, again, fire that up, and we see what happens. I again have more cases, and I also have this selection of, or this variant of having the purchase requisition in the beginning. But still, we have many self loops here. We have loops and so on. So this is something I don't want. So let me just define my to be process how I want it to look like. So I can then also say the approval has to be there, or also the post goods received as an alternative. So now I'm blind. I just type it here to really easily find it. Okay, post goods received, that was what I was looking for. And then again, I can do such a parallelism and say also with another connection saying, okay, I want both to happen. So I just click on that. This is now an AND relationship. and saying, okay, I want both approved PO level 1 and post goods received should happen, but I don't care about the order. So sorry, first firing it up and then making it smaller. So now it reduces again a little bit the number of cases, but still I have these many self loops here. So actually what I wanted to show is that I, for example, can also get rid of the self loops in my to-be model. So let me, for example, drag and drop the PostGR here and say, okay, exclude that directly followed. So when I define, okay, I make it bigger again. When I define it like this, then I would say, okay, it's okay that I have a post goods received, but it's not okay to have a post goods received directly afterwards this. So let me just remove that because then it becomes probably more clear what it does. So, and now you see that the self loop is gone. So I'm actually happy with create PO, approve PO level 1, 2, 3, post GR, post invoice, pay invoice. Just let me add the last post invoice, the last activities here, post invoice, but as include, of course. Where's my pay invoice? There it is. Drag and drop it. So like this. And I want also pay invoice to be the endpoint, fire that up. So, and I think now I have a process what looks nice. So where I can live with to be as a conformance model. So just let's click thumbs up. And now I have defined my to be process really based on the new event filter and based on my data. And what I would like to do now is again to say, okay, let me filter all non-conform cases here by just using this filter option here. And again, make a drill through on my sequence compliance page. Sorry, segregation of duty page. Because now I see, oh, wow, all my non-conforming cases regarding the sequence are all conforming regarding my definition I have here. So this is totally fine. But I can again say, okay, reset filters. And what I wanted to show actually is when I, for instance, have now the non-conforming cases, I can again make a drill through, and that's like my last report page I want to share, to show is the case overview, because what we have here is, and this is reachable from each and every page you have as a drill through, really a cases overview table as a table format. And we think that this is important for auditors, because what you can do now is just to say, okay, export data. And what it does is then to export this particular table as a CSV file. And this is really the last thing I want to show, because I have saved this now on my desktop. So when I open this, I mean, all of you know that when I now change that to be really Excel format, I have a nice table what I can then also use for further analysis with all the non-conform cases I have just found out in my sequence compliance. So yeah, that, as promised, was my last thing I wanted to show. So, and now I think I give over to Tobias and Timo. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanne. It's always great to see the latest version of PAFnow. And I also have to say, we could have talked again for hours, right, to explain and talk about more details. But let me quickly summarize one thing which is very important for us is you have seen parts of our new PAFnow Premium Audit app. And the benefits are really great, because what you find is in the Audit Edition built-in best practices. So you can immediately detect what remains completely invisible normally through interviews, workshops, walkthroughs, or sample testing. And PAFnow helps you to visually spot exceptions, unusual transactions, deviations, and potential risk in your business processes. So this PAFnow Premium Edition is available from now on. And as we announced in our press release, there are more premium editions coming up soon. So please follow us, and you are gonna see announcements coming up soon about the next upcoming editions of the PAFnow Premium product. We are running a bit out of time, but I'm very proud to also share with you that we have great progress on helping you to turn data not just to insights, but also to actions and to automation. So as we have seen in the presentation today, so on the latter part, right? So we had this PAFnow audit package and the new process mining capabilities built out. But on the middle part and on the right-hand side, you see that PAF through O365 and the Power Platform can help you in a quite amazing way to turn insights to actions, to collaborate and to automate. And I want to give you a couple of highlights just to make you see how easy it is to move forward and to into corrective actions in your business process. So let me quickly share my screen. So what we have now here is a dashboard built in Office 365. And just imagine you would have a order to cash process where you like to understand how you can now work against the problem of delivering goods to your customers late. So just imagine you would have done a process mining analysis with PAFnow, looked into historical cases, but now you want to use this process knowledge from your data into your real world, in your operational operation. And the way you do it is very easy. You can use this dashboard, for example, where you see the bottleneck in your order to cash process. You can click on your current sales order values, which is a total 25 million. You see that PAF makes a prediction. It tells you 21 million of your sales orders are in time, but you have cases running late of 4 million euros. So what you can do is you can now say, hey, I want to see the customer behind. Maybe there's a very important customer for you. You want to see here, and you see, wow, you can go through the list, by the way, here. But you see on top of the list, there are 2 customers covering 50% of your overdue cases. So what you can do is, for example, take this one and look into the end activity. So what is the process, the next milestone? And even better, you can also look into who is the manager who is responsible for that case. And then what you can do is you can take this email address, put this in here, and in the background, PAFnow will automatically send the abccompany.com person in your company an email and give him an alert and the information that this order has a priority, and if he takes action now, he can make sure that you can deliver in time. That's one way of using PAFnow on operational insights, helping you to drive corrective actions and to try to avoid deliver goods late. Let me also share that we have a customer which has great success, specifically in this area. They had a delivery reliability of 50%, and after a very short period of time, they got it up to more than 95% by using exactly this type of capability in PAFnow on shop floor level. This is one way to work against problems in delivering late, but there's also another one I like to share. As you might know, you can also use PAFnow as a reporting infrastructure capability in your Office 365 environment, and you can also put in your very important KPIs like the automation rate or late deliveries. And maybe you have seen that you can start setting alerts. So for example, here you can say, hey, I want to set an alert. And if there is a specific number of cases running late, I want to get automatically alerts, or I want to action on those insights. And I wanted to give you an idea how many opportunities and possibilities you have to action on your insights. So first of all, and this is really great stuff, PAFnow through the Power Platform gives you access to more than 300 action connectors. 300. It's awesome. It's unbelievable. 300. So it's a long list of action connectors. And I have to admit, when I saw this the first time, I was like, wow, this is great, but no idea what can I do with it. I want to give you a couple of ideas what you can really do with it in combination with your PAFnow process mining infrastructure in Power BI. So first of all, just imagine you like to do something very simple. If a KPI goes red, if something goes wrong, you can use Teams or SharePoint to share this information in the background automatically with a specific team in your organization. Or as one of our customers is using PAFnow is in combination with the project management team. So just imagine you have a transformation project in your company, a migration project, an improvement project, and you like to to really feed this information to a project manager to work against the specific problem until Friday lunchtime. So you can use, for example, Asana, or you can also look for Jira or for GitHub, whatever your project management tool is about. You can also use, for example, the SAP integration, where you can feed information back into your SAP R3 or S4HANA product. Same as for Dynamics, or Salesforce or ServiceNow, or whatever type of application you have. And even better, and this was what Timo talked about in the early, at the beginning of this webinar, now PAFnow also very nicely connects to Microsoft's RPA solution, UI Flows, which was launched by Microsoft April 1st. And last week, Microsoft announced during Ignite their new desktop version of the RPA solution. And they also mentioned PAF is their process mining partner in Microsoft's ecosystem. So this is also something I really wanted to share with you, because a lot of customers still ask us, how can I get a return on my investment in process mining? And the answer is, if you can directly improve your business process, you are good. You're good to go, and you have a great return on investment, and you can save money in using PAFnow process mining into your existing infrastructure. So no need to set up a new platform. Do this in your infrastructure, and you are really getting the value you need and the benefits you are looking for. So back to my slides, just to summarize this meeting. What I just showed and demonstrated to you is also confirmed by Gartner. By the way, not just Gartner talks about PAF or writes about PAF. PAF is already also recognized by category vanguards like Forrester, HFS, Everest Group, and BARC already. So there are reports out there that can give you also some advice on how PAFnow can be used. I can imagine that after this webinar today, the question is, okay, what's next, what I can do now? And there are a couple of ideas we'd like to share with you at the end of this webinar. First is, if you're a customer already, if you have a partner contract with PAFnow, download your latest product version at our PAF portal, getpafnow.com. So it's available. Get there, get your PAFnow product. And if you are not yet a PAFnow customer, but hopefully soon, go to Microsoft App Stores and upload a free version of PAFnow, or reach out to us and you get a 2-week test drive of the PAFnow app we demonstrated today. And we also made a lot of steps ahead in terms of helping you to really get fit for using process mining in your Power BI infrastructure through new training offerings. And that's why we also wanted to mention that there's a new Design PAFnow Viewer training, Edit training, Report Designer training, and Data Engineer training out there for you. So feel free to reach out to PAF, and we're going to help you to talk about more details of the training concept. As far as I know, there's also more stuff on the trainings available on our website. There's a lot of additional information available, especially from Microsoft. The Ignite was just a couple of days ago. So reach out to the web pages from Microsoft to see what are the plans of Microsoft moving forward with Power BI. You can also get access to a lot of free Power BI training from Microsoft. Here you get a link for the PAFnow Summer Update press release, and more details about the certification training can be also found here. Thank you so much for your time and for joining PAF today. Really appreciated your interest and your feedback so far we got in the chat. And given the time, I want to ask maybe only one question and leave the other questions for a feedback, which we're going to send to you in email next 24 hours. So every question we got so far will be answered. But one of the questions was to Timo. So Timo, what are the next major steps with PAFnow? What is the big picture? What's the next big thing? Maybe you can answer this question quickly before we're going to finalize this meeting.
Before we wrap up, yeah. Okay, so let me be brief then. Process mining in PAFnow is all about making processes understandable, right? With putting the user in front, the analyst in front, and making it easy for them to analyze and optimize their processes. I think the future is about understanding the processes, making the machine understand the process. And this is, I think, where we all should be headed.
Again, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Stay safe and stay healthy. All the best for you. We hope to talking to you soon. Thanks. Bye for now.